Good evening, my lovelies. Hope you're all safe and well. Tonight I am joined by the fabulous Debs Duck, and we are just coming on to do a cheeky little questions and answers evening for you guys. So if you're here, let us know, drop us a little message. Hopefully you guys have ticked for StreamYard to display your name so we can see who you are, or put your names by it so we know who we're chatting to. So let us know if you're here. And yeah, it's just going to be a really kind of casual, laid back evening tonight. But we just thought, because we both love to talk, why not have a little bit of something? So we've got Kerry's here with us. Hiya, my lovely. I am with you. Can you see the comments on the screen, Debs?
Hold on. Private chat. Oh no, that's private chat, isn't it?
Yeah, you want to go comments?
No, I can't.
Can you not see it on your screen? Oh, that's really annoying.
Right, it's got oh, I don't want to press the leave one. I've got the mic, the camera, the settings, the chat, but
so you can see everything else apart from the comments.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll have to...
Oh, hold on. I've got it.
You got it?
I think so. The only thing is if I put the comments on, then I don't get to see you, my lovely Mitch.
Okay. That's cool. Okay, well, I can always read the comments out to you.
Well, I recognise Amanda and I know Kerry. So hello, lovely ladies.
Oh, brilliant. So there's a few people joining us. Hi, Mitch. First time seeing you live. Oh, hello, whoever you are. Sorry, that's coming up as Facebook user. I'm really sorry. I don't know who that is. Adam says hi. Hiya, Adam. Lovely to see you. So, guys, if you've got any sort of like comments, anything you want to know about, any questions, I should say, fire them over to us and let us know. Because we just get bombarded all the time with people asking about different things. So we thought if we could do an evening where we can maybe make the sort of the stuff a bit digestible, it might be quite nice. Hello, Lady Ginny. Lovely to have you here.
Right, that's it. I think I'm in the shot, and I can see the comments now. I think.
Perfect. Can you see them on the screen now? Can you?
Or... your questions on anything spiritual. You're in the show. Everyone can see and hear you. I'm getting there, Mitch. 21st century, you know.
Oh, bless you. Bless you. Okay. What I was going to ask you actually, Debs, while we're waiting for people to join us, is were you like always aware of the spirit world, or how did your journey sort of start?
Funny enough, Mitch, that was the question I'm going to ask you in a minute.
Oh, brilliant.
Right, okay. So basically for me, we used to live in a really old house when I was a child. We just it was really, really old. And I remember my mum being aware of spirit. My younger brother, Jason, who's 5 years younger than me, he was obviously a bit too young. And basically, I used to love reading ghost stories when I was a child. I don't know about anybody else. Did you? Did you read ghost stories?
A little bit, yeah.
Just had a thing about them. And so most of my awareness was scary. I literally used to be so scared because I could always I could feel them. And I literally used to leapfrog into bed, put the pillow on top of my head. Literally, I was just like so scared. And funnily enough, when I had seen spirit as a child, when, a lot of the time when you physically see them with your eyes, you don't actually really comprehend it. So then that part is not scary. Yeah. So for me, I was always terrified, really scared of it. And then as I got older, I was always scared of anything bad or horrible spirits and all of that. So I spent a lot of time being really scared. Now I just laugh at myself because it's so ridiculous. What about you? Well, how did it all sort of kind of start, or your first experiences?
Yeah, well, mine was kind of similar in a way. It was when I was really young, and when I sort of was at school. I remember very clearly one day, like being in a classroom, and there was this sort of teacher sort of teaching us, I think it was maths lesson I was in, and there was another teacher to the side, and like nobody had introduced him to us. And I was a little bit like, why is nobody sort of like talking about this or introducing this gentleman? And I realized that he was a spirit and nobody actually could see him apart from me. So that's kind of how it started. And I had loads of episodes like that. But because it happened when I was fairly young, I just thought it was normal and it sort of happened to everybody. So I wasn't as
Same
scared as,
here.
yes, I wasn't as scared as such. I just thought, what is bloody going on? But it wasn't always frequent. It would sort of start and stop. It tended to sort of be if I was in a fragile place, spirit would come in a lot more. So I don't know if that was the same for yourself.
To be honest, I think I used to just feel them all the time, a
Did
lot of
you?
it. And I think as children, you can't really sort of zone in and zone out. You're just there, aren't you? A lot of the time, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So it just happens quite sporadically, doesn't it? Hi,
Yeah.
Dawn. Lovely to have you here with us, my lovely. Um, oh, yeah. So that's kind of
Oh, hello, Dawn.
how it started for me. And then I used to do, when I was a little bit older, when I was in college, I did photography. So we used to always be in the dark room doing stuff. And
Oh,
I used to see when I was sort of developing the photographs, I used to see before the image would come through, loads of spirits would be in the chemical that you'd use to process.
wow.
I saw a lot of that going on, and it was almost like a misty sort of spiritual sort of haze. So that was quite a haunted sort of place, and I think it just kind of evolved from there, really.
I
Go on.
always find, I don't know about you, but if I meditate in before I'm going to do a reading or something like that, I just love being in really darkened places because I really, for some unknown reason, I feel like the darkness draws spirit so much more closer to us. I suppose that's why
Definitely.
we get visitations at night, isn't it?
I think so. And because obviously, we're going into that higher sort of mindset, it's where the two worlds can interlink. We've had a question here.
Oh,
Someone's just put, I can't see who your name is, sorry, because you're coming up as Facebook user, but they've just said, why can some people connect with spirits and others not able to? That's a really interesting question. For me, I think it depends largely on how you've been brought up, your background, how things have been. So growing up for myself, I was very creative. I was just left to my own
yeah,
devices
me
because,
too.
yeah. And I think because I had quite free-flowing parents that allowed me to just explore and be as I wanted to be, I think that is really why I was able to sort of maybe link with the spirit world quite freely, whereas other people that have had quite a sort of structured upbringing, or perhaps quite a maybe conditioned upbringing, I think that sort of makes people grow up so fast they don't really have time to maybe acknowledge the other worlds, if you like. That's sort of what I've come to notice through readings quite a lot. What about yourself, Debs?
So, what was the question again?
The question was, oh, we're going to have this tonight, guys. Why can some people connect with spirits and others not able to?
Yeah. Well, it's very similar to you, actually, Mitch. Like, my mum would talk about it freely. So we lived in this really old haunted house. And my mum would say, "Oh, I've left things lying around," and they would go missing. And so I was kind of brought up with my mum talking a lot about the spirit world. And we bought two really old cottages, and my parents at the time were making it one big cottage. And my mum said she could see spirit out the corner of her eye going from one part of the house to the other.
Oh, wow.
And and then I became a Catholic by the age of 9. So I was like being aware of the Virgin Mary and, your sins and all of that. But in a lot of ways, it really opened up for me about the spirit world, or about, this thing that's inside of me that just sort of came out. So I used to really believe a lot in angels. And like you, I spent a lot of my childhood in my bedroom because I had 3 younger brothers and I didn't have to share a bedroom. So up in my bedroom, I would do lots of drawing, sewing. I used to love sewing. So I think just sitting in the quiet a lot. And also, being a Catholic, I was really aware of angels. So I used to go to bed at night and I used to think, oh, my guardian angel is with me. And that on every 4 poster, my 4 corners of my bed would be another angel. And I would say my prayers at night. And I can remember when I was about 9, really not just feeling ghosts or spirits, but just actually feeling a really big power of love. And basically what had happened, I'll tell you. So being a Catholic, on Good Friday, you're not allowed to eat anything dairy. And we used to buy for it's like siblings and that we would buy them a Cadbury's cream egg, and somehow or another I actually overbought on the Cadbury's cream eggs, and I had one spare, and I hid it underneath my wardrobe so my mum wouldn't find out. And I remember I ate that Cadbury's cream egg on Good Friday, and I remember I just felt, unfortunately, I think the Catholic religion, I've got nothing against religion or anything like that, but one of the things about the Catholic religion for me was the guilt. There's always a lot of guilt involved with some religions.
Yeah.
And I remember I just felt so guilty. I was just praying and please forgive me and all of that. And I had this really big surge of a spiritual experience. And I think I was about 9 at the time. And this was all up in my bedroom. And a lot of these sort of little things that I think for both of us, just spending a lot of time on our own and just sitting in the quiet just made us more aware of spirit around us. So I think it is about the freedom of our parents and sitting a lot on our own as children.
Yeah, because it kind of like forces, or it makes you sort of form quite a quick bond with yourself, doesn't it? And I don't know about yourself, but because I was bullied a lot at school, so it made me sort of form
a connection.
Yeah, so it made me form like a connection with my spirit really fast. Because you have to, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Cher Marie who asked that question. I'm glad.
Oh, thank you. That's really lovely.
What I will say as well with that question, though, why some people can connect with spirits and others can't, I think everyone has the ability to. When people say, oh, something
definitely,
I think we can all do it. It's
absolutely
just that, we're all on different levels, different frequencies and vibrations. For some, it's slightly easier to dip in and out than others. They take a while to gather their bearings,
I feel like even people with a logical mind, or is not aware, or even has the desire to find out about this side of life, will have had some kind of spiritual experience, especially if a loved one has passed over, or a life-changing moment in their lives that feels very spiritual. It'll be like mind-blowing, but it will be big enough for them to take notice of their own life. And so I think everybody has the capability. And I think also as well, what people may not realize, I think, as mediums or people that want to do this kind of work, is that we have probably worked very hard over the years. And I still do work on my mediumship. Do you, Mitch?
Absolutely. It's an ongoing.
It's not just all over once I can do it.
When people say it's like development, it's literally developing till the day you die, really, isn't it?
It is.
You're always forming that bond, that connection, and also spirit will come in and they'll change things up quite a bit. So, when people sort of say like, oh, it's really easy, it's not, because once you get comfortable with a style, spirit will mix that back up and make you work again.
Like there's been times I'm really clairvoyant, and I've actually had to do a demonstration with not a scrap of clairvoyance.
Oh, okay.
It's like they've taken that bit away and they've given me something else. And that has happened to me a few times.
Wow, it's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Got a few questions coming in.
Oh, here. Fab.
So we got Sarah saying, I thought I was a little crazy when Dean came through. How do you totally believe in the signs? How do you different signs? Okay, that's interesting. I mean, a large part of it is down to trust, isn't it? That horrible word.
Absolutely. Just a knowing, that inner knowing that you've got a sign. And it's very random, the signs. But if it just is like, if it stirred something inside of you, if it's woken you up a bit, that is your sign. You have to trust it. And that's a lot with our mediumship, isn't it? We have to trust what we're getting.
Absolutely.
Stay with it. That's something I've really learned. Stay with what you're getting.
Yeah,
so
and also
you're right.
It's like not trying to sort of fear any no's or any sort of what might be perceived negative stuff, because it's very easy when someone says no to just sort of buckle but actually what I've come to learn is that like spirit don't mess around, in the sense of if they've got something to say, that energy is coming in for a reason. Yes, we might sometimes word it slightly not quite correctly, but we can find out where they're going with it in the end usually.
Yeah, definitely. I used to be absolutely mortified if I ever got a no. Now I just like move on, and I send back a little message. Well, they took a no. What can you give me? And if it's meant to, they'll give it to me differently. But what I do love about spirit is if they want you to say a particular something, they'll just keep it in your mind. It just will not budge. Have you noticed that?
Definitely. What I find, I get a lot of stuff through like pictures. So rather than them sometimes talking to me, it'll be like a load of snapshots, like all together, and they'll just present it with me, and it's like, okay, let's word that into something then.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, definitely. So I feel like with my mediumship, there are times when it's just a lot about sensing, you know, and I think a big part of the question earlier is that we live in such a really busy, rushing around world. And, you know, you say to people, you know, that want to develop it, well, you know, sit in the quiet. But people find it very hard to discipline themselves to sitting in the quiet. But if you can discipline yourself to sit in the quiet, I think you'll then be able to be aware more of your signs that you're looking for, and you'll just have a lot more of a knowing, I feel.
Yeah, definitely, because it's almost like when you're sitting in the quiet or the power, a large part of that is getting familiar with what is your energy and then what is coming from an outside source or place.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other thing about mediumship that people really, or any of this kind of work, it is working on yourself.
Yeah,
It's
it's so
really
much
working
feeling,
out.
isn't it?
That's the biggest part of it. Who you are, what you're about, what your intentions are. And once you really understand yourself, then I feel that the gates open so much more for a lot of people.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Oh, we've got another question here. This is from Adam. Debs, so is your mum gifted? Does it come down in the family?
Right, okay. I think quite often if somebody's gifted, and you know, like great grandma had it, it tends to be, I feel like a little bit in your DNA. However, I've known people that have not known that people have got it in their family and still have the ability to do mediumship or psychic work. But I think that because of in the past, you know, a lot of people didn't really talk about it. It probably was there, and it probably does run through every family, but I feel that everybody has something, you know, everyone is psychic. That's one thing that everyone should know, that we're all psychic. And I think that everyone has certain gifts that we're all drawn to, so you'll be drawn to that. But it doesn't matter if it's not sort of apparent in your family, I don't feel. But as long as you've got a good heart and that you want to use it for good. What do you think,
Definitely.
Mitch?
Well, yeah, because like with my family, you know, love them to pieces, but as I've kind of gone back through, there's no real evidence to say anybody was doing anything spiritually. So I haven't really had that sort of background stuff. So it does feel like I've just been plonked down to be the magical one, and like and I don't mind, I can
Yeah.
do that. Yeah, and like you say, I think like looking back, there have been certain family members that had an intuition or they had an awareness, but they didn't maybe harness it or explore it to the kind of complete capabilities because of life's, you know, bits and pieces that happened, really.
I think also back, say, like, you know, maybe before I was even born, probably a lot of people were suppressed with it, you know, because
Yeah,
obviously the Witchcraft Act was probably still around. And,
definitely.
you know, you had to be really careful about admitting a lot of these sort of things. So probably people that don't know about family members that have got, like, you know, a gift, it probably was there, but it just wasn't spoken about.
Definitely. And also, even in today's world, it's surprising how mediumship is still very much, in some cases, quite a taboo for people. I think because it, you know, it goes into that energy of fear. If you've already, you know, if someone has only sort of ever thought of death after this physical world, that's quite fearful to expand
Yeah.
your awareness to something more. But for me, it was always like, well, there must be more than just this. You know, we're such amazing souls, all of us in our own sort of unique way. We can't just die. That can't just be the
No.
end. That felt so unfamiliar
There
for me.
isn't. I don't know about you, Mitch. I expect you've had a lot of people say this to you, but even today, I did a reading today for one of my little regulars, and her father came through, and she was saying, like, he just didn't believe in anything like this. She said he thought that when he died, that was it. And the amount of times I've brought through people that never believed it, thought once you're dead, there's nothing, it's going to be black. And it's just funny how, oh yeah, they want to come through now they realise they haven't gone into the ground, and that's it.
Yeah, because they've opened up, well, they've been forced to see another whole side, haven't they? Oh,
yeah, definitely.
We've got another message here, another question here. So Cher's sort of saying, people say animals have a sixth sense, and we used to, but have lost it. Do you think this is true? Definitely. I think animals, for me, I feel animals can actually link in with spirit quicker than we can, you know?
Oh, definitely.
I mean, my little Oscar, bless him, I know he's a little damaged boy, but he knows when spirit are around. And he'll be sometimes looking, sometimes if I'm doing a reading and I bring someone through, he's acknowledging through barking, and I know there's nothing there. You know, so yeah, definitely. And if you think back into like Egyptian times as well, animals were heavily used through spiritualism through the Egyptian period.
Well, if anybody will have known me, we used to have about 6 cats. Did you ever come over, Mitch, when we had all our cats?
I don't know if you had all of them at the time when I was there, but you had a lot of them.
Well, you know, everywhere you look, there'd be a cat. And I, before I met my, Shawnee, before we got together, I had 2 Devon Rex brothers, these 2 little Devon Rex cats called Bob and Vic. And then we had our little Sphinx cat, Maisie, who they've all passed away now. But when Shawnee's cat passed away, Susie Socks, she died in this room, funnily enough, on the chair. And oh god, I just nearly knocked my lamp over. But one night, about 3 weeks after she passed away, now Bob, my favorite little cat, he was always very psychic, and this one particular evening, so Bob was on my lap, his brother Vic was on the rug, and I looked down, and all of a sudden I can see Susie Socks, the one that had died about 3 weeks before. And she used to have this really big bushy tail, and she was a little horror. She used to beat them all up. She used to terrorize all the other 5 cats. She was a little madam. And there's one particular evening, it was so funny, I was looking at her tail and I thought, oh, there's Susie Socks there. And Bob had looked over and he had acknowledged, oh, there's Susie Socks. And Vic, he had looked at Susie Socks, but the way that he just turned his head, it was hilarious, because it was like they were saying, well, you can't get me now, but they could actually see her as I could see her. We were all looking at her. It was really funny. But of course, she couldn't terrorize anybody. So it was hilarious.
Oh, wow, that's really
so
cool.
Animals definitely do.
Yeah. I mean, we've had it with Oscar. I probably told you the story before, but when we sort of probably I think this was about 4 or 5 months after we've had him, we were asleep one evening. This is when we were living in Westbury in our original house, and he was asleep downstairs, lovely. Me and Paul were asleep. Anyway, woke up in the night. Next thing I see Oscar on our bed, and I was like, well, how does he get up here? And now, for any of you that know Paul, you'll know that even though he supports my work, he's the biggest skeptic kind of going, even though he does believe, and he's had his own experiences. He woke up and he saw Oscar just as clear as day as I did. So what had happened is Oscar's spirit had basically astral projected.
Wow.
Upstairs. So I went up to pick him up, and I felt I had him in my arms, and obviously I was half asleep still. Went down into sort of the downstairs bit and looked in his cage, and he was just snoring away, not a care in the world. And I was like, what the bloody hell? But the fact that Paul witnessed it as well, and I always sort of remind him of that. It's powerful. So animals, definitely.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I think when they pass, they always want to let their owners know that they are around. And that is another experience we had when our little Sphinx died. This is going to sound terrible now. Like, most of our animals have died. 3 of our cats out of the 6 died naturally in the house. But our little Sphinx, she had a little bad heart, and she passed away on our bed one morning. It was the most horriblest thing ever. I love that. Well, we both love that cat. And so the next day we were off to go in our motorhome to Swanage. And I took a candle because I said, right, we're going to light a little candle in memory of Maisie, who was just the most gorgeous, naughty little cat as well. And as we were lighting, so it was like 6 o'clock in the evening. It was a really hot evening, summer's evening. And as I was lighting the candle, I actually heard her meow. Now, if you know Sphinx cats, they're very much like Siamese cats. They have a very poignant meow, don't they?
Yeah.
And it was so loud. And I went, I've just heard Maisie, because she had that kind of meow, really deep. And Sean went, I heard it too. And like you, because he heard it, I was like, that's from Maisie. That's her sign. That's our sign. She's all right. So, really cool. They always want to come back.
It's interesting how we both have sort of kind of half semi-skeptical partners.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, sure. He's like your Paul. He's very, very supportive, but doesn't want to know anything about, he wouldn't want to come to the Debs or anything like that, which is absolutely fine, because I'm really lucky. I've got free reign to do whatever I like. I haven't got somebody. I think also spirit choose our partners as well. I mean, if we had somebody that was really skeptical, it's really hard to live with that. Whereas our lovely little hubbies, they're really open and allow us to be ourselves.
Yeah, they just allow us to get on with it, even if they think that we're mad frogs. Okay, Amanda's put a question. Has there been a time when your gift has got you out of a potentially dangerous situation?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I do remember. It's only just a very fleeting thing. But I did this demonstration. It was probably up in Gloucester or somewhere like that. And I was so happy that I had done such a brilliant, brilliant job. Well, I just felt like I'd done really well in this demonstration. You know what it's like, Mitch. When you feel like you've delivered, you've done a good job. And it makes it genuinely makes me really happy. And I was driving in the dark. And all of a sudden, I had a very strong presence of spirit and cigarette smoke in my car. And I may vape, but I do not smoke cigarettes. And then literally I understood why, because about 30 seconds later, this big deer literally ran out from nowhere and almost hit my car twice. How the hell it missed my car, I do not know. So yeah, I would say that spirit were giving me a really, just be careful. I thought it's because they were happy with what I'd done that night, but obviously they were warning me about what was about to come.
Oh, that's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. What about you?
Oh, I've not had so much like dangerous situations as such. I've had like sort of situations. Now, this is interesting where I suppose the tarot links in. Tarot has kind of got me out of a lot of tricky situations in the past. And even though it's a form of tool, it's still an extension for me. It's still an extension of spirit because they work with the cards. So I've had, when I used to work at the bed shop, I had quite a in my book that I talk about it, actually, there was quite a sort of a bad point in time there where basically the assistant manager had set me and the main manager up because he'd stolen some money.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, it was quite a large amount, and we were sort of being framed. So I was using the tarot the whole time to kind of guide me through that. And even though I know that I was innocent, obviously, at that time my job was on the bloody line. So tarot would like stay focused. They were bringing out the justice card, the death card, all these really important cards that sort of were showing me it's all going to be okay. So that was quite interesting. So I've never had any sort of dangerous situations, but I suppose tarot really reaffirmed that keep going, keep fighting for justice, because you'll get there in the end. It's interesting about the bed shop, actually, because that's
that's where I met you, wasn't it? In the bed shop.
Yeah, it was so funny. But it was such a weird day, wasn't it? Because I was at the point where I was ready to leave. So I was in a kind of mood where I was like, oh, I don't give a shit
have it. Oh, yeah. Well,
yeah.
the beds.
And
scared
these
and
two,
all of that.
you and Shawnee kind
Have
of
the
came in.
pillows that we
Yeah, and
bought.
I just did you like the deal of the century because I was like, well, I'm going, I don't care. But it was like we knew each other even though we'd never met. It was really
Yeah,
weird.
because I'd never met you before till the bed shop, and it was only when you looked at me and you went, "Do I know you from somewhere?" And I was trying to rack my brains, well, as I would through hair or through mediumship, and
Yeah,
then that was it. Our paths have just crossed ever since then, but not before that day.
I know, it's so weird. I do really feel like spirit sort of put us sort of to be there together.
Yeah,
And really
definitely.
strangely, that's where I met Annette and a few other people as well. It seems to be all this
Really?
gang of like come from there.
In the bed shop. Shawnee
Oh,
and I, we still talk about how we met in the bed shop.
really? Oh, it's funny. And it's a bed that you ended up hating as well, isn't it? Or didn't get
Actually,
on.
it's better now. I've got a board under the mattress. I
Oh,
think that's
okay.
the thing. You know, I need a firm,
You needed
firm
that
bed. Yeah,
firmness.
you still got it.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. Right, we've got another question here. This is from Angela. Do you ever feel tired after a spirit has come through to you? Oh, I think this is from Angela. Is this? It might not be.
Um,
Oh, sorry, Sarah. Do you ever feel tired?
not on the whole, no. If I'm right in the energy, actually, I feel the best I ever feel. Like it, you know, when I've gone and done like a demonstration, if I've had a headache or something, I can come away with no headache, no ailments, no nothing. I'd say occasionally I may feel exhausted if I've done a lot of readings, which is something I tend not to overdo. I tend not to overdo many readings in a day. I kind
Yeah,
of have a sort of limit. I kind of know in my heart, oh no, I can't fit that person in, and I won't because I want to give the best. So, you know,
yeah,
they either wait a week or they find somebody else.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm similar to that really. I don't, as a rule, I don't feel drained, but I'm quite big on a lot of my students in the past have sort of felt I'm a little bit kind of anal with this, but like I'm quite up on my protection. And I think if you
Mm,
put proper protection and grounding in place in the
yeah.
first instance, that stops you from becoming drained.
Yeah, definitely. But obviously, you know, like it depends on just like how you feel every day. It's like every day, like if you go to work, there might be some days that are a bit better than others, you know. So, but as far as the spirit work goes, no, it's not draining at all.
No.
As such, no, definitely not.
Right, we've got Angela's put here. Do spirit ever frighten you?
Well, like I said, when I was a child, they've scared me so much. But since I've been since I developed in the mediumship and I've been doing it a few years, people have asked me to go around to their houses. Now, I actually used to think something like that would be really scary. So one little situation I can remember, this absolutely gorgeous little couple. I mean, they were so cute. They were only young, and they had this benevolent, naughty spirit that was
Oh,
kind of
really?
like really taken over the definitely the male, the chap, the young man, and I would be so terrified of something like that because I'd feel like it was evil, and I was always scared of anything evil. Obviously, it was the Catholic probably influence as I was growing up. But when I actually got to the house, I actually realised that a lot of I've never met an evil spirit, and I've just found that they are just mischievous. They probably were, petty criminals or just got an agenda. But I've never really have met anything evil. And if I met something really evil, that would scare me. But I've never, in all the work I've ever done, I've never met anything evil. What about you, Mitch?
Oh, that's really cool. Well, I've had like one instance where I did have something a little bit sort of malevolent come in. One time I've been really, really scared. So I did this reading for a guy, and it was a lovely sort of reading. It was all flowing. It was all fabulous. And then all of a sudden, out the sort of side of where he was sitting, I saw this. The only way I can describe it, it was like a demon. So I saw this
Mm,
sort of thing with sort of like maleficent horns, these dreadlocks, this really evil sort of face coming out the side of him. And straight away, my spirit guides were sort of showing me mirrored shields going everywhere around me. So I knew this was something a little bit untoward. And they just showed me like a Ouija board that wasn't closed down properly. And I just
oh,
said,
yeah.
And I just said to the guy, I said, right, I know that you've dabbled with a Ouija board. And first of all, he was like, oh, no, nothing like that's happened and all the rest of it. And then I said, look, if you want me to conduct this reading, you need to be honest with me, because I know my guides are saying something bad has happened here. And basically what it was, he'd had an attachment. Now, this demon, I don't actually think it was a demon. I think what had happened is the energy had almost like sort of latched onto him, and he'd been fueling it, because I often feel with negative spirits, they're an extension of our own
thoughts.
embodiment. Yeah. So,
yeah, I agree.
And what was interesting is he actually was at that time suffering from depression, which he'd never had up until then. It's only been since he'd been doing the Ouija board. So he'd obviously allowed something through, or something had come through with him. So there was an attachment there, but it had been amplified into something so much more. So it went from being sort of like a reading, it ended up being like a recovery session. And I had to sort of like close it all down, send it all on its way. It took a while, like, a little bit like with your spirits.
It was, takes a little while.
It was rebelling it to begin with. It wasn't having it. So we had to do a few sessions, but we did finally clear it along. And then he was great. He was back to normal. His mental health improved.
So, I've heard that.
Yeah, so
I do definitely. I do actually. I kind of know if somebody has got an attachment. Spirits, and that's what happened to this couple. This spirit had attached to the young man because he liked the girlfriend.
Right,
but
I see.
I had, with ritual and guides in and all of that, they never had not one scrap of trouble after that. But I mean, what are your thoughts on the Ouija board and people doing the Ouija board?
Well, this is going to divide opinion now. But
I know this is a controversial subject.
Yeah, but I'll be really honest, guys. I think, like anything, it's a tool. It's the intention. It's how you choose to use it. So it's not something I would necessarily advocate to use like generally in public, just because a lot of people, they don't know how to actually work with the board properly. The biggest thing that people go wrong is they don't do like a prayer of protection. They don't do like an opening and closing. They don't end the session and say goodbye. That's the most important thing. Obviously, if the planchette, if it starts to go anti-clockwise, that's an indication of something negative.
God,
it should always go clockwise. So I have used it, and I've actually had really hit and miss results. I remember that time you and I actually did a little Ouija board, and
nothing happened, did it?
Nothing happened, no. And then we did have like something.
Happen.
No, we had something trying to come through, but we were both like, "Oh, this is someone trying their luck," and we just ended it because
I get bored. To be honest, it's just quicker to talk to them. Definitely. Yeah, it is funny, but I agree. I just think it's something that you've got to really know what you're doing. But I do know one of my friends who had wonderful results. I mean, her and her mum used to do the Ouija board, and they would talk to all of their relatives.
Oh, wow.
But you've got to kind of like, I think you've got to really attract, because it's so open to attract lower.
Yeah, it's almost like a big yellow pages, and you never know really what you're dealing with.
You need to have a higher vibration, a more up there to attract the better spirits. But it's not something I would ever advise, really.
No.
Be honest.
Definitely not. And I think also when you are working through pure mediumship, you don't need the board.
Don't. It's so slow as well. Go in and out. But I got to be honest, when I was about 22, 21, when I used to go to work, some of the girls that I worked with had this real thing about the Ouija board. And honest to God, we had such good results at work. And I can remember one night, and my mum doesn't know this, one night they came round my house and we were doing it. And one of the lads, so dragged round some boyfriends, and one of the lads, he said, "Oh, is my auntie there?" And it said, "Yes, it's my auntie," whatever her name was. And at the end of it, he said, "I don't actually have an auntie called that name." So it was just a real cheeky little spirit, if you like, that came in and pretended to be his auntie. And I think that's what you've got to be careful of with the Ouija board is, have you actually got the person? Because they'll always, make out they're your loved ones, and they're not.
And that's really interesting, because like when we did the board together, and it came through pretending to be sort of Paul's mum, I think it was.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and then we asked for, well, what day did she pass? And it couldn't give us it.
No, that's right. So I think, yeah, just stay away from Ouija boards, definitely. Meditate or go into your dreams. I think that's something I love to recommend to people.
Yeah,
Go
definitely.
into your dreams or send out that intention for your dreams to meet your loved ones. It's the best way, to because you leave your body every night. You go to the spirit
Absolutely.
world every night. So go and meet them in your dreams.
Definitely. Oh, we've got a few more questions here.
Oh, lovely.
Kerry's just put, as you're sat of an evening, do you have spirit activity or can you switch off? Well, that's really interesting.
Well, I can always feel them when I'm watching TV. When we first moved into the house that I live in now, now my little hubby, we couldn't live in this house for 2 months because it needed gutting and it needed to be livable. And when Sean, my husband, was doing the plastering on our bedroom wall, he said to me that night, "Oh, I actually seen somebody a man go through the wall."
Oh,
I
wow.
just thought, what? Because our house, it's not like a typical house. It's an old Victorian house, but our house was built as extra bedrooms for the Adams family house next door. If you know where I live in Ashton Street, you'll know
Yeah.
exactly what I mean. And I just thought that's really weird because I know from probably before 1959, just before that time, an old lady used to live in this house. She was the housekeeper for the old couple that lived next door. And I thought, well, that's just really weird. Why would it be a man? And then when I moved in, I actually saw the same thing. This man just walked through the wall. Well, through the top of our landing used to be a doorway from our house into their house. And it wasn't until I went round next door that my neighbours were saying, "Oh, we've got a ghost here and he smokes a pipe and he used to be the man that lived in our house." I
Okay.
realised that that's who we saw, was the man that lived next door. And he was coming round just to check in on us, make sure we were doing things. And so in the beginning, I'd sort of be sat there watching television, but I didn't like his presence. He was just sort of like, you could almost like feel him breathing on your shoulder. So I didn't really like that. But yeah, I do feel them even when I'm watching TV and I go, oh, somebody's popped in. So yeah, that's my experience.
Yeah, I've got similar, to be honest. Even though I'm switched off and like I'm not like in that sort of frame of mind, often when I'm in my cellar, there's a gentleman that's forever going up and down the stairs. Both me and Paul have seen him a few times. And also when we're chilling of an evening, because the house that we're in, my landlord, he actually bought this as a project to get over his sort of his loss and his grief of his wife who sadly passed away. And we feel her in the home all the time.
Do you? Do you
Yeah.
know what? You know who she is to me, don't you?
I know she's connected, but I'm not exactly sure how.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Do you want me to say or
go on
not?
then, go on.
Well, she was married to my brother-in-law.
Ah,
Yes. So I saw your little video with the lights flashing.
yeah. So she's
So
often
I can imagine
around,
she's
but
around a lot.
yeah, but she's always come. It's really interesting because when we need work done on the house, which is quite a lot at the moment,
Yeah,
when
yeah,
our landlord comes over, it tends to be after he's been. That's when we get activity. So I
yeah.
think she follows him and she's just checking in on him and
I,
seeing.
I have I have noticed when people have a lot of renovation work done on their home, that a lot more activity does happen. I think
Yeah,
because
because
the
you're
energy
disturbing the
gets
energy. Yeah.
it gets disturbed, doesn't it? And I knew a lady that was renovating her old Victorian terraced house along Gloucester Road,
Oh,
along there. And she had this little spirit person that suddenly appeared after all this renovation, and they would turn over all the pot lids, so they were all upside down. But after a while, I think the energy must settle down, and then you don't
and then
tend
it
to
stops. Yeah, because it
hear
isn't for
them
very
anymore.
long. It's for like maybe a couple of days, then it all
Yeah,
settles, then it'll come over again, so it will flare up.
yeah, exactly.
Oh,
That's a good
Harry's just
question.
said, "Do you see visible figures and hear voices actually talking?" That's an interesting question.
Well, funny enough, I was going to ask you how when you've seen them physically, how do you see them physically?
When I've seen them physically, they do come through solid, as if it's a
Mm,
physical person standing there. But having said that, like when I'm doing a demo night, and I suppose maybe because a demo tends to be a bit faster, it will be an array of ways. Like we're all different personalities. In a demo,
mm,
you've got all those different energies. So yes, sometimes I'm hearing a physical sort of voice. Sometimes I'm just hearing thoughts and feelings that are being put in that I know aren't mine. Sometimes I do see sort of spirit, but on a demo night, they tend to look like a negative as opposed to a solid form. Like
Yeah, that's how I see them.
Yeah.
But when I've only ever really, I've seen probably about 3 spirits as solid as you and I, like a living person. And one of them was a demonstration I did. And it was this chap. I'd already given him a message in a previous time that I went to this particular little centre. But this one particular day, and it was in broad daylight, and it was about, 1 o'clock in the afternoon in Bristol. And as I was just sat there waiting to start, I could see his dad as solid as anything. He had his arm on his shoulder and he was waving at me like this. And he wore a hat.
Amazing.
Anyway, I looked over and I knew straight away that he was a spirit. And I just burst. Well, I was just laughing. And I just thought to myself, God, I've really lost the plot now. Anyway, I thought if I look away and I look back, I thought he'll be gone. But no, sure enough, he was still there waving at me. So I think the most famous time I've ever seen a spirit solid like you and me was when I owned my hair salon down Wicker Hill. And it was a day after a bank holiday, so I only had one girl in doing the hairdressing, so I owned my own hair salon. And she was busy in the corner doing somebody's hair. And I came in to meet the plumber, to meet my landlord's plumber, because we were having plumbing problems. And as I walked in, I saw this little boy sitting waiting on our couch. And I look over to the plumber, whose name was Gideon. I said, "Oh, Gideon," I said, "I don't know why I said this." I said, "Have you brought the landlord's son with you?" And he looked at me like I had lost the plot. And he just went, "No." And I was really looking at this little boy and I was really staring down at him. And, but in my mind, I could hear him say, "Don't speak to me." And he was looking at me and looking at the front door. He was that solid. He had brown eyes. And anyway, in the end, I just thought, oh God, it must be somebody's client, and and they just dropped off their son and gone off shopping, and they'll come back to pick him up. And he literally sat on that waiting chair looking at the front door and looking at me for about 5 minutes or so. And then afterwards, because in my mind I think, oh, I'll sort him out in a minute. Anyway, when I was ready to come and sort him out, he wasn't there anymore, and I thought, oh, they must have picked him up. Anyway, so I go around and I sort of ask around, "Oh, did you see that little boy sat on the chair?" Anyway, my stylist at the time, she was so funny. She was really freaking out. She goes, "Debs, there was no little boy. There was no little boy." And I just thought, and then it dawned on me, he was actually spirit. And the only way I knew that was because of what he was wearing. So he was wearing I felt like he came from the 1990s. He's wearing like a little bowly haircut and a Fred Perry blue shirt, little Fred Perry blue shorts. He was I'd say about 9 years old. Little blue socks, ankle socks, and little blue leather sandals. That's how solid he was. And I thought to myself, well, little 9-year-old boys nowadays, they don't wear shorts, do they? They all wear trousers. And I realised, and I think that the salon was very much like a portal, because we used to have, it was so depressing because the first 6 months of owning that business, I had a lot of young staff, and young people altogether create a lot of energy. And I literally went through like 6 hair dryers, a pair of clippers, 2 TVs, 3 telephones. And in the end, I just thought, I bloody can't afford this anymore. So my mum came into the salon, we lit candles, and she literally just sort of gathered up all the spirits and then shooed them away. And it really, that was it. It just calmed it down. We would get still some activity, but not enough to break every single electrical appliance. But yeah, so that's quite funny. But if I've ever seen them otherwise, they're normally like I can see through them.
Yeah, it's like a negative, isn't it? Or like smoky.
But physically with my eyes. So in my mind's eye, I would see them in my mind, in my mind. Yeah, mostly. But I did go through a little phase of hearing voices a lot one summer, probably a couple of years ago in the lockdown. Like I'd just lay on the bed and I'd just like hear conversations.
I've had
And
that actually.
oh, that's just really weird. Like, oh my God, I heard that,
I just remember when I used to do my meditation group down in Martok, before the ladies would kind of turn up, I'd always hear about sort of 20 minutes before, there'd be like all this whispering, all these sort of voices, because I'd go over and open the front door thinking, are they like early? Are they outside just waiting?
Yeah.
Because that's how loud it was. And then even Paul sometimes said, oh, I think your ladies are outside. And I was like, no, it's not. It's just spirit coming and ready.
Yeah, but I
Oh,
think what happens with hearing like that, I think it's like a frequency, and I think we're just sort of resonating at a certain frequency, and you're just tapping into a conversation in the spirit world, because that's the thing that I think that we all forget, is that spirit are literally, they say, you stick your arm out, that's how far spirit away.
yeah,
You
definitely.
think they're millions of miles away, but they're all around everybody all the time.
I
The
always
spirit
say
world is around.
yeah, I always say it's a little bit like tracing paper. Like our world is a piece of paper, the spirit world is like a piece of tracing paper, and the two overlap.
That's it. Yeah. So I think everybody is open to hearing, like, I think one of the common things is people's names.
Yeah.
People go, oh, I heard my name shouted out. And that's always going to be a loved one, just letting you know that they're around. And I think that's really lovely. But whenever I've heard the conversations and the voices, it's like they're not aware of my presence, but I'm aware of theirs. Have you found that?
A little bit sometimes. It kind of depends on the situation. Oh, Adam's just put, do you both have spirit guides you call on? Oh, don't talk to me about spirit guides. Like bloody.
Oh yeah, she's making you work, isn't she?
Wow. Yeah, Debs recently sort of I'll show you actually, guys. One of Deb's amazing sort of portraits. She gifted me this drawing back. It's about Halloween, wasn't it, of last year?
Yeah.
And I'd already been working or sensing this new lady, but I wasn't overly sure who she was. And then Deb's gifted me this beautiful I don't know if you can see this beautiful sort of portrait of my guide, and that's how she was sort of coming through to me. Slightly different, but this is a very powerful image of her. And since she's been linking with me, oh my God, like she's just been bossing me around left, right, center. She's been working with me on my tour, getting this up together. She keeps hinting about TV work, and I'm like, oh, hang on a sec, let me just get this tour out the way first. So yes, we have guides. They do change quite a bit. But this new one that's coming, my God, she's feisty.
Yeah, she's making you work.
She is, but she's connected from the Titanic era, and she's just fabulous, and she's really allowed me. What I have noticed with her since I've been doing the demos, she's given me a newfound confidence. I am nervous, but it's a different kind of nervous.
Yeah, you are really confident, and you have to be, don't you? If you're gonna do that.
So it's not like sort of I still like shit in a brick inside, but it's sort of like. But I don't know, when I'm on sort of the platform, it's like I feel like I belong a lot more. Is the only way I can describe it, So I think she's really given me that boost.
Definitely, I love her character.
Yeah, but I was going to say, being that you draw spirit guides, this is a great question for you, really, Debs.
Yeah, I've noticed. I really feel the essence of the spirit guides on the paper. The funny thing, the thing is when I started I've always done art, so it's not something that is really completely new to me, although the portraits are, because I could never draw a face. I just couldn't. And I went on a lovely couple of little workshops because of the lockdowns. I just didn't have anything better else to do, so I went on Sandy Ingham, who's a wonderful spirit artist herself, who works with the lovely guide Leonardo da Vinci, for those that didn't know that. And so I went on a couple of her workshops, and honestly, when I look at my beginning of my work, it was pretty diabolical, really, but you've got to start somewhere. But literally from a very early on of doing these portraits, I started off doing loved ones, but I really love the guides because they're real characters, and I just love connecting people with their guides. But it's just how they move on the paper. They're literally, their eyes wink, they flutter their eyes, their mouths are moving. They're literally watching me as I draw around them, because obviously their face is still on the paper, but I can physically see their eyes moving around, looking at what I'm doing. So the energy of the guides really come out, and it just gives me so much joy when people really connect to their guides. And it's something that I'm really passionate about, actually. So, you know, my guide, the one that I think we've all got different guides, haven't we, Mitch?
Yeah, and I think
Different
sometimes they will stay for a while, then they will move on. You've got like a main guide usually, and then you've got others that will come in and out, like this one. I don't know if she'll be with me forever, but she's kicking my ass when she is with me.
She might have worn you out by then.
Oh, definitely.
But my spirit guide, the one that actually I only really know deeply about my spirit guide that works for me in my mediumship. I have known another guide that I've called Star. She did come in, and then the one that does the house clearance and the naughty spirits is an Aboriginal who I call Blackfeet. So he helps me that way. So he only comes in now and again. But when I met Charles, I just was so desperate to know who my spirit guide is, because when you first start working, you know, people go, oh, do you know who your guide is? And I didn't have a clue. And although I know that they're not so hot on, it doesn't matter to them whether you know that they're there or not. It's not important to them that even if you know their name. But for us humans, we like to know who our guides are. We like to know what their names are. So I actually had this really very strong, I was in the spirit world, and I literally gone to this like land, like you know, like on a hot summer's day the grass is all dry, and it was like a little ranch, and I met my guide, and he was about 7 foot tall, and I was just like, who the hell are you? Like, and he was so scary looking. I said, oh, are you an alien? And he just laughed all the time. He was just so lovely. And when I used to have my doubts about my mediumship, he used to come in and show me all the loved ones. Look, you've helped this person, you helped this person, and he kept me going. But I still didn't really know who he was. And it wasn't until, funnily enough, I went round Karen's house, Mitch.
Okay.
And she's really good at the photography, isn't she? Taking the photos. And she would take photos through a crystal ball. And she took this photo. And the one thing that I knew about Charles, so just prior to that, to go into Karen's house, I just felt this real compelling feeling to go on Google, and I knew that he was American, and I typed in American preachers because I knew that when I seen him in that visitation, I knew he had a dog collar on and a hat, and I recognized him straight away because his name is Charles Finney, and in America he was like one of these great big evangelist kind of preachers, and you know, probably put the fear of God into people. But I knew that he had these big blue starry eyes, and he was 7 foot tall. So I knew straight away who my guide was, but I still wasn't, you know, like, you want a bit more proof, don't you? And it wasn't until Karen took a photo through this crystal ball and said, oh my God, I've got like a really tall priest or vicar here, I knew that that was Charles, and I just know his energy now. So yeah, for me, knowing Charles, I talk to him all the time. Talk to him about, you know, like, you know, especially with my work. But I feel, and I don't know whether you feel this, Mitch, but I do feel that he doesn't stay with me all the time. He goes off and helps other people, and he probably helps religious people because he was, you know, a preacher. But he had an amazing experience, like a spiritual experience, and he was very passionate because he was just prior Victorian times. He was very passionate about, you know, slavery, you know, people not being slaves for the black people and women getting an education. So I think he was a good guy.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I think it's true with this sort of guides. I think they, even though they're there when we need them to be, we don't need them all the time. So they do go off and do other things while we're, you know, while they're waiting for us to sort of call on them. And I think that's the thing. When we set that intention to ask them to stand, they will come straight forward, you know.
Oh, they never let you down.
Absolutely.
They never let you down. No, definitely not. So yeah, it is lovely when we connect with our guides. Definitely. The one thing I have been noticing is a lot of American guides, Native American guides.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of people have a lot of, yeah, there's a real strong connection with native and indigenous people as well.
Oh,
You know, there's quite a strong connection there as well with people. But although I have drawn some very just ordinary everyday folk, you know, they don't have to be somebody famous, they don't have to be, you know, Native American. It can be just like, I've done very humble
yeah, just
portraits
down
as
to earth
well.
as well. Well, that's nice. Oh, we've got another question
Oh,
here.
lovely.
Helen's just said, how long does it take for a spirit to come through after they have passed?
Mm,
I don't think there is really a timescale, to be
no,
honest. I've had it
none.
before where I've done, actually, it's really weird. I did a demo in Westbury a couple of years ago, and a lady had literally lost her sister in the morning, and she'd come to the demo in the
Wow.
evening, which I would have been, that's quite brave, I think, to kind of to have come that, you know, soon.
Yeah.
But her sister was there straight away, and I said, I don't feel like she's even been buried yet, and you know, or been sort of had her service, and she was coming through strong as well. So there really is no time scale.
No.
And I think largely it depends on, you know, a person's faith in this world, how they lived their life, circumstances of the way they pass. Sometimes that can play a little bit of a part, I think.
Mm.
What do you think to that, Debs? That's a good
Yeah,
question.
definitely. I mean, that's happened to me before. I was doing a Melch spiritualist centre, and I was pulled to one side to begin before I started. And they said, "Oh, you know, the three girls on the front, they just lost their dad 2 days ago. They're really, really, you know, upset." And I then, I don't know, I don't know if you, well, I think you will have noticed this, Mitch, but when you start to work, it's almost like you couldn't even like be able to say your name. It's like you're not here. I
Yeah.
always think I'm in the spirit world, and I started giving this message, and it was their dad, and he only passed like 2 days before, and they were crying. And then I remembered, which kind of like had to focus back on, you know, giving them a message. But yeah, and yet I've known people not come through for decades,
It's
and
really
I
weird, isn't
don't
it?
understand it in a
Yeah,
way.
there's no rhyme to it. And I think with the people that maybe just take a long time to come forward, I do wonder if maybe they've still got to maybe heal or work through
Yeah,
something, if maybe there's a block
definitely healed.
somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. But if you think also with time, you know, time is
Mm,
man-made. It's only been created to keep structure and order in this physical
yeah.
world. And
Yeah.
obviously, so in the spirit world, they don't necessarily need that. And I think this is why often they will sometimes come in at inconvenient times because they don't know the concept of time.
No, no, that is very, very true. I mean, one example of that is my grandmother, my mum's mum. I mean, she, bless her heart, she was an alcoholic,
Oh,
and she had a really, she didn't have a brilliant life, I have to say, my grandmother. And it was about 40 years before we actually ever, you know, heard from her through, you know, a
wow.
medium.
That's a long
And
time, isn't it?
basically, my mum, years and years ago, my mum went and had a reading, and this medium said to her in the reading, "Your mum is asleep. You know, she's in the healing, she's been healed, and she's in a hospital in the spirit world."
And the healing
And
realm.
then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, we started hearing from her. So I know that she is
Wow.
around. You know, we know she's about.
Yeah, and also if, like you're
So,
saying, if she had quite a sort of hard life, it would make sense that the
mm,
healing realm would be required to sort of make peace
yeah.
with that.
And I do think that about people that probably have passed over, that have had a terrible illness. I think they just need that healing, that recuperation. I suppose it just depends on, you know, like you say, the person or the situation.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
Oh, we've
Yeah.
got Amanda here. Hello, Amanda. We got do you believe spirit can intervene fate and stop an event from happening if you ask them? Mm.
Oh, if you ask them, I was going to talk, say about free will. You know, we need to ask them to come in and intervene. And I think they would come in to intervene if it was a matter of certainly of life and death, or, you know, it was something really important. Yeah, I think they do. But, you know, they have to be invited, you know,
Yeah,
to
I think
come and help us.
it's quite a grey area, isn't it? Because I think
Yeah.
sometimes, even though something might be really sort of awful, sometimes we still have to maybe go through that, and maybe there's a lesson. I always remember, and it still makes me laugh now, like knowing what I know now, but back like right in the early days, I went to see this medium and she was really good. She's bringing all this stuff through, lovely. And then the next day I had a car crash, and I was so angry with her because I was like, why did that medium not tell
I'll tell
me
you.
that I was going to have a car crash? And it was quite a bad one. My car was completely written off. I was going round a roundabout, and basically this car just completely queue jumped the lights, hit me on the side. My car spun round on this big sort of like roundabout that links onto like the motorway, and it was awful. I still remember it now. It was really scary, and I was so fuming with this woman. And I was like, how did she not see that? But of course, maybe I needed to have that experience
Yeah.
for what was to follow.
I believe that if something really awful has happened to you, I do believe that spirit and angels are really protecting you from something that could have been much worse.
Yeah.
So so say like you had that accident. Well, probably spirit were around you, they were protecting you, because it could have been like a great big lorry or something,
Yeah,
that could have hit the side of your car. You could have been injured. So I do believe that they do come in on certain things like that, really important stuff, and they do intervene, definitely. And I love seeing those little videos, where quick time somebody runs across the road, grabs somebody because they're going to get hit by a car, and runs across, and all of a sudden they run off in the distance.
Oh yeah,
It's like an angel that comes and saves somebody. I do think things like that probably do happen an awful lot more, but because we can't physically see it, we're not aware of it.
Yeah. And it's interesting with that crash, because even though my car like took a battering, I literally walked out with no scratch on me. So there is a lot to be said for it.
Honestly, I think my traffic guardians and angels are always protecting me. The amount of times I could have had a crash and I haven't.
Oh, definitely. Amanda's put here, why are some people chosen to go through a lot of trauma where others seem so blessed? That's interesting.
Now, I actually watched something yesterday about that, and a lot. So, do you want to hear my do you want to hear this theory? Because why is it always really not? Sometimes really nice people, they always have everything that's, really horrible happen to them, and then really horrible people always have not, they just breeze through life. And one of the suggestions is, well, I think one is, it's in your life plan or learning. Your spirit is going through a tremendous amount of learning. So I do believe in that. But I do want to sort of lightly brush upon tapping into that energy, that manifestation, that universal energy. And I think that, if we're in a really positive place and we keep focused in that universal energy of abundance, I think that a lot less things kind of happen to us, especially if we look at the sky a lot. I don't know if you do that, Mitch. I do. Like, oh, thank God, we've got, or if we got something really good that's happened, we always go, yes, because we're looking up at the sky. And I think that is our mind subconsciously just tapping and looking up and tapping into that wonderful universal of abundance. So I think, if we, and gratitude, I think when we're more grateful for things, I think, even if something bad does happen, we're so grateful that it wasn't anything worse. I think gratitude keeps us, away from, or we're attracting more really good things to happen in our lives.
That's really interesting. And I do think, I often say to people that, the mind is a magnet, and I speak to so many people. This is what I love about readings. You get to see so many snapshots of people's lives, and you see what you feel or what a person feels is really bad and really traumatic. But sometimes actually they're not recognizing the successes that they're carrying. And often because they get so sort of focused in having to sort of keep X, Y, and Z in place, I think sometimes what I love about tarot, it can come in and sort of just remind people or show people, look at where you're at, look at what you've actually achieved. That some people just overlook. And just by that little sort of change in energy, their world can change. So I do think, largely we do create our own experiences. And as with you guys, like to hear that, but like,
yeah, that is true. Yeah, definitely. You know, I mean, you're absolutely right. So many people just like, you know, they're really horrible to themselves, you know, and they
yeah,
should look more at their
when they strip it,
achievements.
yeah, because when they strip it back to basics, I
Yeah.
challenge quite a lot of people on that as well, and I say, well, actually, from how I'm seeing it, looking in, you've got X, Y, Z, you're doing amazing, you know, and when they
Yeah.
sometimes stop to appreciate what the quality of their life is,
Mm.
it's like it all sort of change. Oh, Sally
I
says,
think
can I? Oh, go on, go on.
I was just going to say very quickly, I think a lot of people juggle a lot of balls nowadays. You know,
Yeah,
they're trying to keep family happy, they're running a home, or they've got to go up, they've got demanding jobs. And I think that we have to prioritize a little bit more of our lives to what is really important. And something that I learned since I met my little hubby is that work, rest, and play. Now, for me, it was just always work, 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 and now I've learned more balance. So I think when you pull yourself out of really stressful situations, I think more you've got time to appreciate all the lovely things that are happening. You're more in control of your destiny, I feel.
yeah,
Definitely.
definitely. Absolutely. It's like yesterday, Paul bought me tickets to go and see Blood Brothers, the musical, tomorrow in Bath, which
Ooh.
I'm really excited for. But because he didn't check my diary first, I had to move a client around, and I felt so bad about that.
Yeah,
But,
I would.
but the fact that I thought, no, I'm going to go and see this show,
Yeah,
because a few years ago, I'd have said to him, well, you'd have to get a refund on those tickets because
yeah,
I
I
can't
would
do
have
it
been
because
like
there's a
that.
client. Yeah, but now I'm like, actually, no, I'm going to move the client. She was fine about it.
Of course.
I explained the situation, and I thought, no, I am going to bloody go and have a night off seeing the show, because we do need to have that human
Yeah.
side to us as well, you know?
Absolutely, definitely. And I think, you know, that's one thing I think the pandemic taught people was just a bit more about balance in life.
Yeah, what is actually really important.
Yeah, yeah.
Sally's just said, can she get a refund on her life plan?
Do you know what,
Oh,
Sally? I want my 40 years back of working really hard. Can I have that back as well?
oh gosh.
Oh,
Amanda's
bless
just
her.
put here, do you think angels walk amongst us? Yes, I do feel that.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Actually, funnily enough, I heard a story about an angel. Oh yeah, I don't know if where did I hear this? I can't even remember. Oh, I know. Yeah. So somebody told me this little story very recently about their father was ill in hospital, and they literally got to the hospital, and this young lad was smoking a cigarette, was just stood there, and he said, "Can I help you?" And and she went, "Yeah, I need to find such and such a ward. I need to get to my dad." And he said, she said, literally, he was running with her, literally running and running. And he took her to where the ward was, and he literally just pushed her and he went, "There you go, just walk through there." And she said that literally, as soon as she turned around, he'd like disappeared.
Oh,
He'd like
wow.
you know, like had gone through thin air. And she said, like, he was just the most unlikely, you know, look of an angel. And I think we definitely have angels that are like that. That, you
Yeah,
know,
definitely. It's really interesting you say that, because I
normal people.
remember a friend of mine who's also a client, she had a similar experience with her mum. Her mum one time desperately needed to get to the hospital, and no taxi drivers were available. Then all of a sudden this car just rolled up and said, do you need a lift? And you know, she got in the car, it was all solid, it was all like a normal experience, and as soon as she got out, she went to thank him, and she turned around, and it was gone. But she said that
Yeah,
she would have not physically she would have seen the car drive off, but she didn't, it just
yeah,
vanished.
yeah,
So I do think, you know, they walk amongst us, definitely.
definitely. I don't know if they are actual angels or they're actually people, but something very supernatural happens at those sort of kind of things.
Yeah, and it's
But
always when
they,
there's an emergency as well, isn't it?
yeah,
Tends to.
yeah, yeah. And I just think that's really lovely. That's really, I wonder if anyone's going to ask us, are aliens walking amongst us?
Don't know. What's your theories on that then?
Well, I'm really into it at the moment.
Yeah.
So I get these little fixations, and I'm just reading a lot about, you know, about aliens, about, I don't think it's going to be long before we actually really get to see some positive, definite proof of aliens or something a little bit more solid. And I think I think the human race is ready to sort of embrace a bit more communications with aliens. What do you think, Mitch?
Well, I've been actually watching a lot of Egyptianology at the moment, and
Oh
like sort
yeah.
of documentaries on Egyptians that link in with aliens, and a lot of the findings, it all kind of like stems hand in hand, and you know, a lot of the actual hieroglyphics and everything, they're saying if it's been helped by the process of aliens, because there was just no way, because they're so high, they're so tall, they just wouldn't have been able to create what they did back in those times. And also one of the documentaries I was watching recently, they've discovered like metals that we don't even have in this world, that, you know, that they've got no kind of identity. And you think all those sort of centuries ago, there's, if when you start delving into it, there's so much stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's interesting, when I used to live in Martok, because it was like out in the village and there was a lot of woodland around, of an evening I would always go out and sort of let Oscar have his poo and everything else, and I'd look up at the stars and I would see the stars. But both me and Paul have seen this quite a few times. We could see the outline of this huge black pyramid. And the only way I can describe it, I don't know if it was some sort of spacecraft or whatever, but it would always hover over our house. And what's happened since is wherever we move to, I can see this bloody black pyramid. So like, there are times, not as much in Trowbridge, I will say, but there are times in the evening where I've seen it above this place.
I know that they have created this great big star fighter jet. Have you seen it? Like, it's in the shape of a triangle, and it's got three lights on it. But I think that you know, with our sort of like, you know, forces, our military forces, I think they are trying to adapt a lot more of like space, time, a lot more newer ways of traveling, so that we're able to go out a lot more into the galaxy. So, but I do think that, you know, like what you'd seen with it, I do think that's a connection. And I didn't realize just how much the ancient Egyptians were really connected a lot to aliens. I mean, let's be honest, all these beautiful like temples and that, I do think that we have had an alien presence here that has taught us about mathematics and things like that, because, you know, going back thousands and thousands of years ago, how on earth would they have built and, you know, worked out mathematically, you know, all these big temples that are still standing today?
Yeah,
I just find it amazing.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's a lot more to it. And also, if you think that there are universes within universes, there could be, you know, and I do firmly believe that there's a mirrored sort of version of our life somewhere else. Possibly happen, like different dimensions, so much stuff, you know.
I tell you what, have you ever read any of Dolores Cannon stuff?
No, but I've heard of her.
Oh my God, she is amazing. And basically, she was like a little American granny. I mean, literally, she had her hair set, you know, and she was a tubby little lady, but she was amazing. And she wrote a lot of books. I wouldn't mind getting my hand on some of her books. And she used to be like a hypnotist. She brought all her family up, and I'm not sure if her husband was ill, so she looked after him. And then eventually, when all kids had grown up and gone and all of that, she then started doing regression. And she would write down all these people's like experiences. And it was just amazing, the alien influence of, you know, like would come through the regressions, but also through, I assuming, I don't know this for definite, but through her meditation, she would be connected to like the greys and find out a lot more about their intentions and why they were coming around our earth plane. And she has said that they had been here for thousands and thousands of years, and they're watching what we're doing. God knows what they're thinking right now at the moment in the world, but they are watching because they can't intervene either because of our free will.
That's interesting. To me, that seems more logical. We've just got a really interesting comment here by Di. She's just put, if you have read Star Crash by Dolores Cannon, she tells you about the beginning of star seeds on Earth. Okay.
So what does she mean by star seeds? What would that mean? I don't understand.
So I think star seeds is like an extension, isn't it? It's going into that sort of whole offshoot of sort of alien.
Oh, right, okay.
Harry's just put a comment here. Do you get a stronger connection to spirit if there was a group of people, as I was on sat with my brother and family? Not necessarily. I feel I don't actually. It's going to sound really awful. Sometimes if there's a gathering of people, I can find it blocks it for me.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Mind you, there was one time, and I would never ever mix alcohol and give them readings. What about you, Mitch? I just wouldn't. You know, I would go to a party, get really hammered, and then, you know,
I'm quite strict about
that.
Yeah,
I just don't mix the two spirits together. But one, a few years ago, I was in Port Leven. We absolutely love it. We always go there on our motorhome, and I was with my little friend, and I mean, I wasn't absolutely hammered, but I'd obviously had quite a few, and there were a lot of people about on this one particular evening, but I was in a really happy little place, as one is, and my friend got chatting to this couple, and said, what I did, you know, as a medium. And I would never go up to people and say, oh, I'm a medium. I just wouldn't. I would probably, well, now I'm a full-time one now. I probably would have to if somebody asked me what I did for a living. But I wouldn't go up to people and go, oh, you know, this is what I do. Or I'm going to read for you. I'd never, ever do that. I'm not a Teresa Caputo and go up to somebody in the supermarket or anything. But this particular evening, I just had this, you know, that Mitch, you must have had it, that whoosh feeling. This just sort of whoosh came over me, and I knew straight away that I had his dad. And I thought, well, do you know what? I'm going to go with this, because this man, he's obviously crushed about his father. He's never going to go to a medium. I just have to give him this message. Anyway, and I'm there, and I was quite drunk, you know, and I never ever heard anybody, I'd never seen anybody crying hysterically, swearing. He was just absolutely such an emotional mess. And there was people around, but it wasn't like packed out. And afterwards, he just said, thank you so much. And it was all about, you know, his dad saying to him, there's nothing, you know, you don't need to feel guilty or bad. I'm proud of you as a son. Because I think their relationship was a bit fraught. I'm proud of you and I love you. And you came to see me before I died. And I love you so much. And just for him to hear those words was incredible. But yeah, I was just stunned because I was quite drunk at the time. I thought, oh my God, I didn't even know it worked when you were drunk, but I still wouldn't do it as a rule.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously back in like sort of the Victorian times, particularly, people would have a little bit to drink before.
They did, yes, I read that.
So before they kind of went on. But it's interesting what you say, because I'm the opposite. I was so bad. Like when I used to be in the bed shop, because it was quite dead in there as well. When you would get a client and coming in, what I was finding, because spirit wanted to move me out of there and I was rebelling it for quite a long time, I would see loved ones around people. So they'd be choosing their beds and I'd be like, oh, bloody hell, here we go again, sort of thing. And it was really tricky because I just thought, a little bit like you, I might not never see this person again. Do I say anything? Do I not?
Yeah.
So there was quite a few times where I did do little mini readings for people. I know it's really unprofessional. Like looking back now, I cringe quite a lot. But at the time, you know, spirit were obviously making it known they wanted that because they were coming in so strong. And everyone did love their messages and it gave so much hope and validation. And that's really, in a way, what kicked me to sort of think I need to be doing this full time.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how they will sometimes appear even in the most random of places.
Can I ask you another question? When you first started out, was you all guns blazing and ready to go, or were you like really nervous and didn't have a clue how you were going to start your journey?
I'm always nervous. This is the thing that makes me laugh. Everyone's like, "Oh, you look cool as a cucumber." I live on my nerves so much with it, and I think. And I've always sort of said to people, I think the day that I'm sort of not nervous is the day that I'm actually not working from spirit.
Yeah, I'm always nervous. But I think I'm trying to like not be so much nervous that I'm not able to deliver, but just in that nervous energy that's going to make my own spirit, build the energy, the power.
Yeah, it's a different
But to
type of
have the
nerves, isn't it?
confidence
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
know that I can do this for this person. And I don't know if you feel like this, Mitch, but I feel like never before until really right now, and especially like in war times, that we are needed so much as mediums and psychics at the moment. You know, mediums are so needed right now just to
yeah,
help in this world at the moment. I really
definitely.
feel that quite poignantly.
And I do feel as well there's a new breed of medium kind of coming in. I feel that
Do
quite
you?
strong. Yeah, I feel like we're sort of like the next sort of generation of mediums, because mediumship is changing quite a lot, you know.
Yeah, it
So,
is.
and we're quite different, because even though we work really well together, you're from a much more sort of in a way quite a disciplined background with your mediumship, whereas I'm a little bit more loose
I
and all
am.
over the
Yeah,
place.
actually, that's very true. It's because I went to an SNU, a Spiritualist National Union
Right, of
church
course.
to start with. I was only like in the circle for 6 months, but I did the SNU training program, so that's why I'm quite structured, I feel. But also, I like it all orderly. I can't be doing with like bit here and there, and I think you could get away with an awful lot more being gay, and you can swear and be cheeky, whereas like I just think it just come out wrong if I said something like what you say sometimes. I laugh so much. It's so funny and it's so beautiful to watch. I know
Oh,
it's really uplifting for a lot of people when they watch you working.
oh, but I think that's it though, because a lot of the time, if that's how a personality was, like I can't sort of say, oh, you know, if they're coming through all prim and proper, but I can hear all this swearing, then I
Yeah.
need to sort of maybe not repeat all of it, but just say, well, actually, that's not how this person
Yeah,
was, to keep this sort of authenticity of it. Oh, we've got a good question here.
absolutely. Oh
Um,
yeah.
Amanda's just put, why do mediums not use ectoplasm anymore and show spirit?
Right. Well, ectoplasm is for physical mediums, and not everybody is a physical medium. But I think because of the dangers of ectoplasm, so like the one, if you know me, you know I'm addicted to anything Victorian, and I love reading a lot about the pioneer mediums. And if you look at Helen Duncan and what happened to her, I mean, basically, you know, if you're in a room, you're the medium, and you've got ectoplasm. As soon as any light comes in the room, it just shoots back into the body, it burns them, it can be dangerous, it can kill them, and it killed her in the end. So I
Wow.
think spirit have created a different type of energy now, and I can't remember what it's called, but have you heard of it, Mitch? It's
I have
just a
heard of it.
different form of energy that's a lot less dangerous, you
Yeah,
know, to the
that
medium.
isn't, because I don't really deal so much with the physical mediumship. That's not as much my forte, I'll be honest.
No, nor mine, but I have been to a few physical seances, and
Okay.
they are pretty amazing, I must admit. There's one there's two that I've been to that people may have heard of, which is Scott Milligan.
Oh
I
yeah.
went and sat in his seance in the Arthur Findlay College, and that just blew my mind.
Oh,
Although we didn't actually see spirit, and you know, there has been a big controversy about seances in the dark. They have all the ones I've been to have been in the dark or had a little red light, you know,
oh yeah, like
in the room. Yeah. And then there's Warren Kaler as well. I've been to a few of his. He's more of like a materialization medium, you know. He can produce all the gemstones and things like
crystals.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's a lot, you know, a physical medium, they just won't be known. They'll be known, but the general public are just not invited so much to things like that,
Yeah,
because
it's a lot more
it's a
private,
lot more
isn't
about
it?
trust. They tend
Yeah.
to be, the sitters tend to be more the mediums and healers and people like that, you know, that know about it, because it's so absolutely unbelievable that what happens. And I'm especially saying that about Scott's seance that I went to, like hearing spirit voices and all of that. I could really go. We need another Q&A, because I could go on a bit more about that particular seance,
Oh,
because it is just so unbelievable. You know, like I know with Helen Duncan, like she had I think an animal in the room one time,
oh
and you
wow.
know, people's loved ones would literally walk out of the cabinet, and hug people and then walk back into the cabinet, because it's just so mind-blowing. A lot of people really wouldn't be able to cope or understand it or believe it, or do you know what I mean?
It's quite selective, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, we got a good question here from Amanda. She's just put, how did you discover what type of medium you are? I kind of think spirit just decided for
Yeah,
me, to be
it's a bit
honest.
like the like Harry Potter, the sorting hat.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's a quite interesting question. Because I'll be honest, when I first was sort of getting into all of my bits and pieces, for me, it was all about the tarot. And I
Yeah.
didn't really, even though I was aware of spirit, I didn't really want to work with spirit. I actually was sort of pushing them away for a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah, you were actually. I remember that. And then all of a sudden,
Yeah, it was
and
like,
it just
boom.
yeah, it goes to show you can do the two together. It works really, really well.
Definitely.
I do think what you're meant to do is you're drawn to it. It's like I've got this lovely girl in my development circle, and I just look at her, I just see the word trance written all over her. I just know she's would make a wonderful trance medium. And I'm really excited because now she's looking into that. And
Oh.
I think, yeah, I do think we can sort of diverse a little bit, but I think you will be doing what you're meant to be doing.
Yeah, you'll be
Definitely.
gravitated. Di has actually just put, have you ever sat in trance? I have sat in trance, but I actually had a little bit of a bad experience from my mentor.
Oh,
And
did you?
yeah, so it sort of really slammed the brakes on for me, where it was all lovely,
Oh,
it was all really good, but then they got to a point where it just felt, or I was made aware that it wasn't as genuine as it sort of was led to believe.
oh, that's a real shame.
Yeah, I've
Because
been to
I
a few
think,
others, but yeah, I've been to a few
mm,
others. I have done a little bit of that, but to me, I just feel, because when I've done trance, like, spirit have come through me, they have spoken, but I don't remember what gets said, and I like to be in
no.
control of the experience. So for me, that is too much out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, I know. I'm not one for letting go of my voice. But I
Yeah.
do know with trance, and we have done it a little bit in our little circle. But the thing is, though, you're going to be more conscious of what you're saying, and
Mm.
it's over a period of development and time of how deep a trance medium you're going to be, that you will really, if you're a full-on trance medium and you are completely out of it, brilliant. But it takes years to develop that. And obviously, I think the thing is with trance, I think you've got to really have a lot of trust there, because
Yeah,
you really are letting yourself go.
yeah, you're almost stepping your spirit out so another one can come in, aren't you, really?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that takes a lot of trust. So I think on that side of things, it takes a long time. So yeah, to start with, it is going to be very much your mind. And once you
Mm.
build up and get more trust, you're going to lose your mind and allow spirit in so much more. But it's a
Definitely.
wonderful way of spirit to be able to communicate.
Yeah,
Trance.
a lot of sort of philosophy tends to come through with trance.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Laura's just put a quick question here. Do you think you attract certain spirit because of the type of person you are or experiences you have lived through? That's really interesting. For
Mm.
me, I get a lot of suicides come through, and that's because
Yeah.
I've lost a lot of people to suicide. So I do feel
Mm.
spirit are aware of that, and they trust me to be able to deliver it in a tactful way.
Mm.
So I do get a lot of that, actually. I don't know about what you feel with that.
Well, the thing is, right, I generally, I mean, I like to start, if I was doing a demonstration, I really want to start off with a really jolly person. So I always say, oh, please just send me somebody jolly to start off my demonstration. So it could be tricky if I don't have a jolly person. So I suppose, but I realised over the years with my mediumship, not everybody has had a happy life,
No.
and they're still feeling the effects of it a little bit in the spirit world as well. So I'm now more open to anybody wanting to come through, I have to say. Like, for a long time it was just grannies and granddads a lot, and it wasn't until I went on a course at the Arthur Findlay College that, my tutor, Chris Drew at the time, he said, well, if that's all you're thinking you're going to get through, that's all you're going to get is grannies and granddads. And I thought, well, people have lost children, they've lost husbands, they've lost wives, they've lost all different types of and friends, you know. So I try now to open my mind now and allow anybody, like I'm free for anybody to come through. And yeah, but I do think, Mitch, you do bring through a lot of young men, and I think they just feel comfortable with coming through you. Like that.
Yeah, it just tend to
You
be.
know,
And
because of
also,
your energy.
what I've had quite a lot recently is also gay guys that have passed through perhaps AIDS. I've had a lot of like flirty spirits over the years come through.
Yeah,
I
I've had a
will
few of
say.
those as well.
But it's quite
Yeah.
nice when you get that, when they still have their person. Well, they of course they have their
But it's
personality.
lovely. It's cheeky, but it's lovely. Yeah, I love that. I love sensing their sense of humour. I really like that. And you know, I mean, like when we were saying earlier on about you can say quite risque kind of things.
Yeah.
I always remember like one communicator I had. I mean, they literally were going through this woman's like knicker drawer, you know, and everyone was laughing. It wasn't rude, and it wasn't enough. It wasn't to embarrass her. It was just cheeky little things, you know, and it was just really funny. So I kind of quite like the fun, because you know, missing a loved one is so horrendous, and we miss them so much. It's so lovely to hear people laugh with their loved ones. You know, I love that. So I like to think I probably attract that more.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I was having that conversation with someone the other day, actually. Like, I feel for me, mediumship can never, can never bring back or replace that physical connection.
No.
But if it can give a piece of something back to a person, then, it's something positive, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's why we're here, because we care and we love people. And I was talking about this today with my lovely nail tech, who I say is an empath and a psychic. But you know, we're in this work because we hate seeing people suffer. I hate it. I don't want to see people suffering. And any little thing I can do, I will do it. I'll go to the ends of the earth to do it if I have to.
Yeah.
You know, so that people know that their loved ones are with them, or you know, and surround them, and make their life more positive and bearable, you know, because life is hard. It's really hard.
It is really challenging at times. Like you
Yeah.
say, if we can sort of make a little bit of that more kind of bearable, or sort of if we can expand someone's mind to maybe look at things a different way as well, it's all worth doing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things about life is feeling lonely. And I know that when Spirit have worked through me, their biggest message is you're never alone. You've got spirits around you. They love you. You know, they care about you. Your loved ones are there, your guides. Everybody has them. Nobody's more special than anybody else. You're never alone. All you have to do is reach out your mind and your heart and your love towards them, and they will be with you in a heartbeat.
Yeah, that's all it is, isn't it? It's opening up that heart center to feel that energy. We've got one final question, which I've just seen, which is quite interesting. And then we'll have to call time, guys, because we always run over.
Have a cup of tea. I need a cup of tea.
So Sally's just put, do you ever get people through who are still living, but their spirit might be crossing over, like people in comas or dementia? I had this yesterday.
Yes, we get it a lot.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
I had this I was doing this reading. I'll quickly say I was doing this like lady reading yesterday, and I felt like her mum was right by my side, and I was describing her. I was saying how she looked and everything, and she's like, "Well, that is my mum, but my mum's still alive, but she was locked up in her mental mind is in a really deep dementia, and she's verging that point of crossing over." So yeah, definitely that's an interesting one. How about you, Debs?
Definitely. I remember one particular time I can remember in a spiritualist church, and I was describing this woman, and this chap goes, "Yeah, but you know, she's still alive." And I was really confused at the time, because obviously I was quite new to platform, and I thought, why am I seeing an alive person? Surely I should be seeing a dead person. And so somebody said, well, go back and find out who it is that's given it to you. And I did. I actually went back, and it was this woman's husband who had passed away, but he was describing his wife who was alive. However, I think in your situation, Mitch, and when people got dementia or they're in a coma, I think it's their spirit actually that comes in.
Yeah, I
and
think that they're
communicates.
traveling between the two.
Definitely.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you often find, don't you, with people with dementia, they might say, "Oh, I was having a chat with my mum," but then the mum's been gone however many years. But I think because their spirit is drifting between the two realms,
Yeah.
they are having that interaction with someone,
Yeah.
but then they're being pulled back down into this world, you
I
know?
think in a way, if we, know without a shadow of a doubt that our, parent, our family and loved ones who have got these dementias and that, and we know that they are moving about the realms because they won't have dementia in the spirit world. They'll be in perfection, won't they,
Yeah,
Mitch?
exactly. They won't
Because you
have any.
don't take your physical ailments with you.
No, you
It's
leave
quite
all of that.
comforting to know that they're happy floating around, so they're not suffering too much in the body.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think that's really comforting. I think
One
that's
thing
really.
that Spirit have said to me a lot, as you mentioned about that, I don't know how you feel about this, but when someone passes, even though, yes, the body might take impact and it might all look quite tragic, Spirit have said to me quite often that the spirit will leave before the body shuts down. So yes,
Definitely.
so yes, it might look awful
Yeah.
what you see, but the spirit is probably actually standing with you watching. It's that kind of
Yeah.
situation.
Totally. I do believe that the spirit leaves just before, say if it was a quick passing, like a car accident or something, just before that moment.
Yeah, it's yanked
I
out.
believe the spirit leaves, that it doesn't suffer. And
Mm.
I don't know about you, Mitch, but a lot of messages I've given, like one of the things that they will say, I did not suffer.
Yeah, all the time, isn't
They,
it? And
they, they will reassure their loved one here they didn't suffer when they passed. And that has been a big comfort to a lot of people. So,
absolutely.
yeah, I definitely believe that.
Oh, well, guys, I think literally
Oh,
we could chat all night because there's loads of
we could.
questions still. We'll do maybe like another one in a couple of weeks or maybe in a month's time, which would be quite nice.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
thank you so much, everybody, for joining us this evening. If you came on halfway through, some of the questions that are coming up, we've actually sort of said them already. So check out the replay, and then you can go back over and have a little look. But thank you so much for allowing us to have a little bit of a waffle evening. It's been amazing connecting with my beautiful friend, the Debs tied up.
Oh, and you, Mitch. I've really loved connecting and sharing this really fun. It's been quite a laugh, actually. This
Yeah.
lovely little chat. And thanks to all your lovely people that have come and watch. I hope they've enjoyed our little topics.
Oh, I hope so.
Thank you for the questions.
Definitely. Well, take care, guys, and we will catch up with some of you lovelies very soon.
Yeah, definitely. Thank
Oh,
you all so much. Thank you, my darling Mitch.
take
Mwah.
care,
Lots of love to
lovelies.
you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.